Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Good Tuesday News Day, and we're going to cover all that good news that we could find, or at least stuff that we think is good that's happening out there. So let's go ahead and get into our headlines. Today on Before Coffee. France's National Assembly votes on enshrining women's rights to abortion in the French Constitution.
U.S.'s largest solar panel array goes online, and we have good economic news.
One of Scotland's last master kilt tailors creates unique online course to help art form stay alive.
News brief, Peter Navvaro is sentenced to prison, and George Carlin's family sues AI.
Januhairy, what embracing body hair says about the beauty ideal.
Those stories and more, which is National Croissant Day. January 30th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
All right, our first news story covering France. This is on Your News Next by Associated Press. It's a combo story here. France's National Assembly takes up a bill on Tuesday meant to enshrine a woman's right to an abortion in the French Constitution, the first key steps in a legislation process that also requires a vote in the Senate. The measure has been promised by President Emmanuel Macron following a rollback of abortion rights in the United States. Macron's government wants Article 34 of France's Constitution amended to include the law determines the conditions by which is exercised the freedom of women to have recourse to an abortion, which is guaranteed. A constitutional amendment must pass both Chamber of Parliament and then be approved by either in a referendum or by 3/5 majority of a joint session of Parliament. Macron's government is aiming for the second method, though the measures of level of support in the Senate is less certain than in the National Assembly. None of France's major political parties represented in Parliament in questioning the abortion right, and a majority of deputies in the National Assembly, the lower house of the Parliament, are expected to vote in favor of the proposal. Some members of the Conservative majority in the Senate have criticized the wording of the proposal, making its passage there more uncertain. If the same version of the bill ultimately passes both houses, Macron could call a special session of all legislators in an attempt to win a 3/5 vote. Abortion in France was decriminalized under the 1975 law, but there is nothing in the Constitution that would guarantee abortion rights. The government argued in its introduction to the bill that the right to abortion is threatened in the United States when the Supreme Court in 2022 overturned a 50-year-old ruling that guaranteed the right to abortion. Unfortunately, this event is not isolated. In many countries, even in Europe, there are currents of opinion that seek to hinder any cost to the freedom of women to terminate their pregnancy if they wish. The introduction to the French legislation says, in Poland, a controversial tightening of the already restrictive abortion law led to protests in country last year. The Polish Constitutional Court ruled in 2020 that women could no longer terminate pregnancies in case of severe fetal deformities, including Down syndrome. Well, there are some arguments out there that being able to choose to abort is, in a way, some sort of control. What is it called? Can't think of the word right now. But basically not controlling the population's gene pool, I guess. In further news coming out of France and Belgium, traffic in Belgium has disrupted by farmers' actions as the French convoy is on its way to Paris. I think last week we talked about how the farmers are angry about their ability to survive in the current society, not even just economic crisis or anything like that, but they genuinely feel like they're being taken for fools. And I guess now the farmer protest has spread to Belgium, which has a half French population and a half Dutch population, or Belgian population. This is from NOS News. Due to an ongoing farmer protest in Belgium, road traffic around Antwerp was seriously disrupted this morning. The blockade is now over and the traffic is moving again. There are still long traffic jams around the Belgian port city. Previous advice to Dutch motorists to avoid Antwerp is no longer in force, the ANWB reports. Farmers blocked the E19 between Breda and Antwerp with their tractors on the busy Kleine Barriel junction just above Merksum. They set fire to material, causing a lot of smoke, and the road surface there needed to be repaired. Farmers are also taking action again in other places in Belgium today in the run-up to Thursday's European Summit in Brussels. For example, there were protests this morning at Geel, east of Antwerp, and on 2 roads south of Brussels, the Flemish broadcaster VRT reports. This afternoon, farmers want to block the access to roads to the port of Zeebrugge, writes a Flemish newspaper, De Tide. The action should last a day and a half. Actions at the entrance and exits around Antwerp have also been announced this afternoon. Belgian farmers are taking action because they say their work is no longer profitable. They point to the rising production costs and the unchanged sales prices and criticize strict European environmental regulations. New nitrogen rules have been added now that the Flemish Parliament recently agreed on a new nitrogen approach that should lead to halving of nitrogen emissions. In France, farmers' protests also continue. The blockades they organized yesterday on roads, yesterday on the 29th, I think. Wait, when was this report? Today. Okay, so yeah, on the 29th of January, to and from Paris have continued in most places. Farmers set up camps and spent night on site. Demonstrations also led to road closures and other locations across the country. Since yesterday, an expanding convoy of tractors have been on its way to Paris from the south of France, after an overnight stay in Limoges. The farmers want to travel today via Orléans to Rungis, south of the capital, where the largest food distribution center in the country is located. Police stopped the tractors on the A20 highway this morning, on the 30th of January, but the farmers involved told the French news agency AFP that they were on their way again. The Farmers Union FNCEA and Jeunesse Agriculteurs spoke for more than 3.5 hours last night in Paris with the new Prime Minister Attal, reports the French newspaper Le Monde. Attal is expected to report on the outcome of the negotiations later today. The Prime Minister responded to the farmers last week by canceling the increase in tax on agricultural diesel. That commitment is not enough to the farmers. They are angry about what they consider to be low prices for their products, while they are faced with rising energy prices. The farmers also criticize European environmental regulation that prescribe that they are not allowed to use part of their land for agriculture due to nature restoration. The EU must meet French farmers on that point this week, French Agriculture Minister Vincenoix said yesterday. So they're still angry about the rising cost and not being able to be an organic farmer, but at least France, hopefully, because it looks like there aren't going to be problems, will be able to pass abortion laws in France. Unfortunately, I've lost access to Rog. He has disappeared and has not returned through those 2 news stories. So, I don't know what to do now. I thought he would be back during my second news slot, but he has not come back. And he hasn't messaged me here on anything. Computer locked up, okay. So I think he's probably resetting his computer now. What else can I cover? I don't know. Let's see, what is the big news story? Let's see, the big news story on The Guardian. Let's see this. I'm trying to use multiple news sources for all my news. So I can, I don't know. The biggest news story right now seems to be about... Okay. Hungary's Prime Minister is making unreasonable demands. With only days to go until Thursday's summit of EU leaders, it is still unclear whether 26 heads of state and government can convince Hungary's Viktor Orbán to agree to a long-term financial aid for Ukraine. A senior European diplomat told The Guardian this morning that member states are united when it comes to opposing Budapest's demands. I hope so, even though as usual he will try to extract as many concessions as possible. This time, however, I hope that there is little for him to gain. Member states are quite united against unreasonable demands of Hungary, and at the same time there are messages being passed about possible consequences for Hungary's continued obstructive behavior. A senior European official, meanwhile, said the summit can go for several ways. Hard to say. I think all options are open. Yeah, it does sound like because of Hungary kind of fighting so hard against the rest of the EU. Here's a crazy idea. I don't think it'll happen, but here's a crazy idea. Do you think Hungary will be forced to leave the EU because they're constantly butting heads and they're the only one? Is that what they want? Do they want to get kicked out of the EU? Is it even possible? I don't know. I can't remember there being any historical happenstance of the EU kicking a member state out. The UK left voluntarily, but they did not get kicked out. So I'm not sure if it's even possible. Anything's possible these days, really. All because they want to. Here's what Orban has said an hour ago on the 30th of January. Orban reiterates yearly review demand for Ukraine aid. In an interview with Le Point, publishing this morning, Hungary's Viktor Orban repeated a position Budapest has articulated over the past days that is now open to providing Ukraine aid from the EU budget as long as a unanimous decision would be taken every year to allow assistance to continue, effectively giving Budapest an annual veto. We decided to make a compromise offer. Fine, we do not agree with the budget amendment. We do not agree that we should give 50 billion euro to Ukraine, which is a huge amount. We do not agree that we should give it for 4 years, and so on. But let it be. Hungary is ready to participate in the solution of 27 if they guarantee that every year we will decide whether or not we will continue to send this money. This annual decision must have the same legal basis as today. It must be unanimous. Unfortunately, the position is understood or interpreted by some countries as means to blackmail them every year. So, yeah, things are moving, or they're trying to move stuff for Ukraine in the EU, but with patience. Or I should say, patience is running thin, because they just don't understand why Orban is taking the entire EU hostage for this. They're trying to add so many concessions to the simple idea of, like, is Hungary even giving a large amount of money? What are they arguing? They don't have enough money to send?
Good old technology. As you were, technology. Totally useless again. So when you need it, just goes, screw you, lock up, never gonna work again. Okay, stories, good news, good news day. I guess I did these first. Largest U.S. solar storage project goes online, enough for 250,000 homes. As long as this computer continues to run, I'll read this, I guess. The nation's largest solar energy and storage. This is from Andy Corbley. Good News Network. Good news, as long as my computer doesn't lock up, I'll read this. The nation's largest solar energy and storage project came online in California last week, offering 875 megawatt hours of solar capacity and 3 gigawatt hours of storage. Partially located on Edwards Air Force Base grounds in Kern County, California, the Edwards and Sanborn and Solar and Energy Storage Project is expected to provide the California grid with enough renewable energy to power 233,000 homes. A half dozen companies teamed up with the Department of Defense for the project, including LG, Samsung, Terrigen, Mortenson, and others, and it consists of 1.9 million US-made solar panels. Now fully operational, this facility is a transformational project in an industry providing resiliency to the grid, said Brian Gorda, Vice President of Engineering at Terrigen. The Mortenson team was tasked with an extremely difficult goal to build this project, and they proved to be the right partner for the job. The farm spans 4,600 acres of sunny desert flatland. Edwards and Sanborn will send its electricity to the city of San Jose, Southern California, Edison, and the utility companies of Pacific Gas and Electric and Clean Power Alliance, and the headquarters of the Starbucks Corporation. Approximately 3,200 tons of CO2 will be mitigated with the incredible scope of the project, which was funded with several big money financing rounds that included JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank as investors. So there's your good news about alternative energy and our CO2 reduction. And more good economic news. This is from AEI.org. Bloomberg Opinion, it says. Hal Brands is the author. Good economic news keeps putting us ahead in Cold War II, as he calls it. Amid cascading crisis, a stalwart war in Ukraine, a febrile and violent Middle East, a clash for primacy with China, it's easy to despair for America's global position. Optimism might come from a reminder that the underlying indices of U.S. power look quite good. For all the talk about China's ascent and America's decline, the reality is that in economic terms, the U.S. is actually rising relative to its chief adversary, which means that the relinquishing of global leadership, as one well-known presidential candidate advocates, would not be a concession to necessity, but a retreat of choice. Global power rests on economic power. For years, it seemed inevitable that booming China would someday overtake the U.S. But now America's economic lead is increasing. In 2023, its gross domestic product was $26.95 trillion against China's $17.1 trillion, the largest gap between the two countries since 2010. U.S. government statistics published on Thursday, taking into account fourth quarter figures, put American GDP actually at 27.94, making the gap even larger. Of course, the GDP is just a snapshot of the country's productive prowess, but one measure. Let's do that sentence again. Of course, GDP is just a snapshot of a country's productive prowess, but one measure accumulated wealth. China's fares even worse. America's national wealth was $140 trillion to China's $85 trillion in 22. The second straight year, the gap between them grew, and that rhymes. Other figures point to the same direction. In 22, the U.S. produced 11.9 million barrels of oil per day, compared to 4.1 for China, continuing the trend that has been America's oil production to be at least twice the size of China's since 2014. I don't think that's necessarily a great thing, so I don't know, we're acting like that's a great fucking economic boon. We're digging more oil out of the ground. Yay for us. No, that's not great. It's actually good that China's making more electric vehicles and self-driving trucks, so they don't have to waste a lot of time. What about debt in the mid-2023? Waste a lot of energy, sorry. And time, for that matter. Time and energy, they kind of waste together. What about debt in the mid-2023? In mid-2023, total U.S. outstanding credit was 253% of GDP. At first glance, a depressingly high number, but depressing compared to what? China's outstanding credit was 307% of GDP, even though the country was far less indebted than the U.S. not so long ago. Given that China is a poorer country with much poorer people than the U.S., its debt weighs more heavily on its economy than America's does. When it comes to investing in the future, government data shows that U.S. spends nearly twice as much as China on research and development, $886 billion to $456 billion, and the incremental gain in America's total outpaced that in China in 22. China is at least winning the race to old age, as positioned a poisoned chalice indeed. China's median age surpassed America's in either 20 or 21, and as population shrinks, the gap between the two countries slowly narrows. These statistics are all part of a bigger story the world is beginning to understand. The age of Chinese stagnation is here. As Michael Beckley and I wrote in 22, China is suffering from deeply rooted economic problems with no easy escape. Growth is becoming more expensive as the country runs short on resources, from arable land to usable water. One of the history's worst peacetime demographic crunches may have China's population by century's end. while forcing the country to bear even heavier costs of supporting its older population. Perhaps a decisive shift towards market reform and liberalization could lift sagging production, but as President Xi Jinping insists on rigid conformity in Chinese politics, he chokes off economic spontaneity too. That's why China will struggle to keep pace with, let alone overtake American economic power in the coming decades when one adds in these rivals' respective coalitions, Russia, Iran, and North Korea on China's side. Ooh, Russia's on our side. Ooh, we got them. The world's advanced dragging us down with their war machine, basically.
Oh,
the
yeah.
world's advanced democracies in Washington, the economic balance looks more lopsided. Like all these strong economies are on the U.S. side. But don't pop the champagne just yet. China, stuck in second place, can trade and investment to woo diplomatic partners, especially in the global south, like South America and Africa. And China, that never equals America's global military power, can still wreak havoc on a vital region. Military balance in the Western Pacific is one area where Beijing is gaining ground rapidly. And don't forget Taiwan. But as China puts fleets of new ships to the sea, augments the world's most awesome conventional missile force, and expands its nuclear arsenal, it gains better options for smashing the status quo. And as Xi realizes that China may never surpass the U.S. economically, the temptation to use more coercive measures to achieve his ambitions, such as unification with Taiwan, may also grow. One danger, then, is that China's relative economic descent makes it more violent. Another is America, that gives up global responsibility out of misplaced perceptions of decline. Former President defended J. Trump's argument that the U.S. must shred its alliances and shred its obligations is of a piece with this view that the country is in stark decline, that America's benighted policies have let its rivals eat its lunch. And so often with Trump, the numbers say otherwise. Whatever strategic problems it faces, and they are legion, America's economic position is strong and getting stronger compared with the rival that matters the most. The U.S. has the wherewithal to outcompete China and sustain an eminently favorable global order. The question, as false fears of decline and form false counsels of retrenchment, is whether it still has the vital combination of political judgment and geopolitical will. Of course, any progress we make will be just dumped in the shitter if Trump becomes president anyway. So, good economic news. The U.S. is doing strong. And all this moaning about China outperforming us is just that. It's just performative art to get elected.
Yay!
Your story.
Let's hope everyone else feels the same, I guess. I don't know.
Well, China's got a closed society. That's why they pay.
Our next story is about Scotland and making kilts. That's right. This is our good news story, or another good news story here from Andy Corbley on Good News Network. Last week, Good News Network reported on a specially Highland wear company reproducing the world's oldest known tartan for sale today based on a 16th century sample preserved in a bog. Rest in peace the guy who fell in a bog. In other Highlander wear news, Master Kilt Tailor Marion Foster has created a unique online course and accreditation program that will help you preserve the art form among professionals and amateurs for centuries to come. The first kilt Foster ever sewed was done in the course of assembling her uniform as a Cub Scout leader. But that was only possible because she meticulously studied for the construction of a kilt, since there was very little information available about how to do so with traditional means. She always had an aptitude for sewing, and even after successfully sewing together a kilt, wanted to know more. In my late 40s, I heard of a school that was one of the military's master kilt tailors had set up, because he recognized all of the knowledge and skill that had been created over a couple of centuries, said Foster. There is a craft behind the kilt that is dying out, because the people who have known the craft haven't had the experience and the knowledge to create training programs. It's been a huge amount of work, but I think it's very valuable. There's more than just me out there, and now the knowledge won't just stop at mine, she adds. Called the Askeval Strathern Kilt College, Foster's unique Kilt Tailoring Mastery Program can be carried out entirely online with twice-weekly tutorials over Zoom from a workshop in Perthshire. She also has the videos and tutorials on the basics which break down each step. I recognized that information was disappearing. I'm sure things are being lost because nothing was written down, she says. As I went on, I had the opportunity to have an experienced tailor come and visit me, who really enlightened me about the tailoring, the stitching, and the way that you create a garment to fit the shape of a person. Part of what I've wanted to do throughout my life is to become an expert and then press it on and support other people, and I want this craft to continue. Maron started offering her online qualifications in 2020, after creating hours of training videos and writing manuals over lockdown. Her hopes is that the accreditation will allow her students to set up a traditional Highland wear businesses, restore her historic kilt, and create special occasional kilt for loved ones. High street shops still want to say that they're selling handmade kilts, but they're flat, made to measure, and very different. High street kilt makers will make a kilt in a day and a half, whereas I'll be doing fittings to take 9 days, Foster says. I've got students in America, Australia, Shetland, and Germany. We have a gathering every month with guest speakers, historians, leather workers, and sporan makers to talk about what they do, and we record all of those. She further explains that the kilt restoration is an important part of the training program, and which isn't offered at the aforementioned high street kilt makers. People come in with historic kilts that have been left to them, she says. We have the technical knowledge of how to restore and weave the cloth, and deconstruct it and reconstruct it to fit that person. It's amazing to see filthy First World War kilts be cleaned and restored, the stitching recovered and made to fit the young grandson or great-grandson. So there we go, the ambitious mission of this one kilt tailor to return it back into the hands of the people. So go check out, I don't even know. They didn't really give me where to check her out. But I guess go check out... They really didn't give me information. They're like, yeah, she's doing it. Okay, the Askeval Strathern Kilt College. You can probably just look up or Google Kilt College, and you'll find all the resources you need to become the next master kilt tailor. And, I don't know, give a bunch of kilts to your friends. I say let's all start wearing skirts. I agree with that. And you can make your own. They probably even give you a lesson on making your own family tartan, so you can have your own pattern for your Scottish clan.
They're all invented by some guy anyway.
Yeah, right? Well, that's my story. On to yours.
All right. Love a kilt. In the U.S. news, the story we covered last week. This is from Gizmodo.com. I think it might have been the one that reported on the original one. George Carlin's family takes this AI bullshit to court. That's what that headline says. I love a headline that puts bullshit right in it. This is by Oscar Gonzalez, updated day before yesterday, or yesterday, I guess it says. Earlier this month, a comedy special featuring AI-generated George Carlin showed up on YouTube. The jokes weren't that great, and there were questions about using a dead person's likeness without permission. And on Thursday, a lawsuit from the legendary comedian's family made it clear that it isn't a laughing matter. The estate of George Carlin filed a suit in California over the George Carlin I'm Glad I'm Dead comedy special produced by Dudsey. Now, first of all, just the title itself should be offensive to any family. The lawsuit claims that the special constitutes copyright infringement and was created to profit off Carlin's likeness without permission. According to the suit, the estate is seeking the immediate removal of the special and an unspecified amount of damages. The lawsuit is one of the first to delve into the legality of using AI to create a person's likeness without their permission. Kelly Carlin, Carlin's daughter, called the AI-generated version of her father ghoulish in an interview with Gizmodo earlier this month. Dead people don't get to have a vote, and that's what particularly disturbing to me about this. They're voting for him. They're deciding that it's okay to do, and it's a disrespect to his autonomy. It's a violation of his humanity and his personhood, and of course, his creative integrity. Ethically, it is the stinkiest move I could imagine. stinkiest move. The plaintiffs listed in the lawsuit are comedian Will Sasso, writer Chad Kultgen, and tech company that has yet to be named, so it is referred to as John Doe's. Dudsy is a podcast Sasso and Kultgen host, but the two say they collaborate with the unnamed tech company to create AI content for the show. However, that appears not to be the case. Sasso and Kultgen didn't respond to the request for comment, but in a statement to the New York Times admitted that the AI associated with the podcast is a fictional character and that the jokes in the special weren't written by AI. A YouTube video, I'm Glad I'm Dead, was completely written by Chad Kultgen, the spokesman for Sasso. Daniel Dell told the New York Times on Friday. How this will play in court, the new revelation remains to be seen. So it's not even AI, it's just some bad writers frustrated by the fact that their careers suck, trying to use George Carlin. And in another update of the stories we cover frequently here, one of defendant J. Trump's friends is going to prison. That's right. This story from New York Times. Zach Montague. Peter Navvaro was found guilty in September of criminal contempt of Congress, making him the second Trump aide to face penalties related to one of the chief investigations of January 6th. Navvaro, a trade advisor of former President defendant J. Trump, who helped to lay plans to keep Trump in office after the 2020 elections, was sentenced on Thursday to 4 months in prison for defying a subpoena from the House Committee, not the White House Committee. For defying a subpoena from the House Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. Navvaro, 74, was found guilty in September of two misdemeanor counts of criminal contempt of Congress, making him the second Trump aide to face penalties related to one of the chief investigations to Capitol riot. The judge overseeing the case, Amit P. Mata, had rejected Mr. Navvaro's primary defense that Trump had personally directed him not to cooperate with the subpoena and that he believed he was shielded by executive privilege. The words executive privilege are not magical incantations, Judge Mata said, handing down the sentence after a tense 2.5-hour hearing in which he repeatedly took issue with Mr. Navvaro's claim of executive privilege. So, Peter Navvaro, just one of them little, whatever you want to call them, Trump acolytes, who just thinks he's above the law and he can pull out executive privilege and invent terms called presidential immunity, which is no such thing as presidential immunity. There's no such thing. It's just bull crap. These guys are just delaying tactics so they avoid justice. Back to you.
Don't avoid justice, guys, because it'll come for you sooner or later. You can try all you want, but we will get the truth. We here at Before Coffee will know the truth and get our justice.
We'll pretend there's justice, okay?
Yeah, I guess so. All right. In our culture segment, we're going to talk about Januhairy. That's right. Embrace that body hair because guess what? You're born with it. And I don't know who the hell, where it happened. Somebody convinced women you got to shave your body hair. I don't know who that was, but fuck them. That's my personal message to that. Probably a guy. Probably that guy. This is from Anka Ulea on Euronews Culture. The viral Start of the Year challenge invites women to embrace their natural body hair for a month. But why is body hair, especially on women, so controversial? Yeah, please tell me. Please tell me. Scroll through the @Januhairy Instagram account and you'll find stories from women around the world who've chosen to cast their razor aside for the first month of the year. I've been doing it for 7 years. Not to brag. The tone is overwhelmingly triumphant. A woman with a buzz cut wearing a pink halter top, hearts painted on her eyes, gleefully raises her arm, revealing 2 tufts of armpit hair. She exclaims, "I'm a woman! I have a body hair!" One sentence does not exclude the other, because body hair is natural. Another, with curly blonde bob and bright blue eyes, dances giddily as she strokes her leg hair and shows off her underarm fluff. The video starts with big on-screen text reading, "Hey, guess what? Women grow hair too! Hey, girl boss!" Now, first of all, I love the positivity here, but acting like they're doing something heroic is a bit too much for me. As somebody who hasn't been shaving anything for 7 years, mostly because I have terrible eczema on my legs. So whenever I would shave my legs, I would just have eczema on my legs. So we're not doing that anymore. It's not worth it. Who gives a shit? Nobody I've ever met has ever cared about my body hair. It's like a figment of our imagination on the, social media cares. That's not real people. They can't affect your life. But dig a bit deeper and you'll find that Januhairy isn't just another lighthearted start of the year self-improvement challenge. Some of the tiresome testimonies on the page reveal deep insecurities and even shame that women have felt about their body hair. My advice to you as a woman is don't feel shame for anything you do. Because a lot of men don't, and they should. Well, I want to say one of the biggest difference between men and women, this is a generalization, is that men don't feel shame for a lot of things they do and women feel shame for everything they do. And that's why women are always pushing themselves down into like a lower class, because they feel shame for everything they do for no reason. As a 13-year-old from Australia writes, it's still hard to embrace my hair out in public, mainly because I don't want attention and eyes on me with disgusted looks. Her fear is logical when you take into account some of the downright hateful comments on the Januhairy post. If you think this is attractive, you're all sick in the head. Maybe they don't want to be attractive. You ever think about that? Women don't just exist just to look pretty. I know, crazy concept. Maybe I don't want to shave, okay, but that's not hygienic. Just saying. Oh, you think because people don't shave, they don't take showers now? No guy's gonna settle for a female with chest hair. Guess what? All females have chest hair because your whole body is covered with hair. Just not visible hair. Everyone has chest hair. The visceral hatred towards women's body hair may be surprising for some. It's not surprising for me, but I am disappointed. It is in 2024 after all. Shouldn't we be over this by now? But more philosopher Heather Widdows, author of Perfect Me, Beauty as an Ethical Ideal, and professor at University of Warwick, says that the way society views body hair on both men and women has only become more hostile over the last decades, probably because of the polarization of social media, I expect. Something like Januhairy is a political statement. It's not a personal choice, Widdows told Euronews Culture. It's not like giving up alcohol in dry January. It's not something that people have got neutral views on. It's something that, to do it, you have to be making some kind of big political statement, rather than a fashion choice. Januhairy began in 2018 as an initiative by Laura Jackson, at the time a drama student in the University of Exeter, the UK. Jackson told the British media that the idea came after she had forgo shaving for a performance. Though I felt liberated and more confident myself, some people around me did understand or agree with why I didn't shave, she told the BBC at the time. The social media campaign spread quickly and soon reached women from around the world. On top of raising awareness of the stigma still surrounding women's body hair, the first edition also raised money for charity and education about body image. I can't believe this is from 2018 because I swear, when I stopped shaving my armpits and my legs, that was like 2016, 2015. Maybe even 2013, so maybe the US had a different thing happen, a big thing. I think back in the US, at least, I remember people were dyeing their armpit hair, so not only were they not shaving it, but they were like making even more political by coloring it different colors and being like, yeah, that's right, you won't miss it, it's right there, I dyed them pink, you know. But
well, of course the actual invention of shaving anything was capitalism.
Yeah. Just like why
if you want to stretch back to over the lengths of time or whatever, it probably started in the 1920s when people started showing more skin, because women weren't even showing skin until the 20s.
Yeah.
So
if you're wearing nylon,
there's no reason to shave anything. Haha.
Yeah.
So freedom, and people said, "Oh my God, hide them hairy things." And they said, "No, we can shave it. We can shave them." Oh, okay, we can do that too. And then an industry sprung up around it. There you go. And once that industry sprung up, it became jobs.
Yeah.
So
we got to help the people at the razor companies that are making
that's
all
right.
the razors.
The razor industry is just another industry that needs money. So there you go. Of course, men shaving existed way before that, but then again, everybody's gonna look at your ugly ass face. So, not you personally.
I mean,
I
don't know if I've said it before on this show, but I have little side mustaches here, and I don't shave them because I like my little side mustache.
Most people do look like the rear end of a bus anyway, so who wants to look at them?
And nobody could even see my little side mustache because you'd have to be zoomed in on my camera to even see my little side mustache. So,
of course, you need something to save all your.
You actually need to be looking for it to notice. And that's the truth about most body hair, by the way. Unless you're looking for it, which means you're like either you have a weird kink or something. I don't know why you're looking for people's body hair, but nobody notices. Like I said, I've been living with body hair for 7 years, and nobody has ever come up to me and been like, I can't believe you don't shave your legs. Nobody's ever come up to me and yelled at me in the street about it. That's never happened.
If there's a thing, there's a kink for it. I guarantee it. If it's wearing donuts on your head, somebody's into it.
Over the 6 years that Januhairy Instagram account has amassed over 40,000 followers, it's a rare instance of body positivity on an app that's more often a breeding ground for unattainable beauty standard. If we want to use some broad strokes, social media is usually not very helpful for women's body image, says Professor Elizabeth Daniels, head of UWE's Bristol Center for Appearance Research. The effect, though, tends to be somewhat small. For Daniels, the more powerful influences, especially on younger women, are peer groups and targeted beauty marketing. There's so much out there that's pushing into the other direction, that's telling women, you need to shave to be considered beautiful, Daniels told Euronews Culture. So to be able to shut it all out and think about, what do I consider to be beautiful? What do I want to willingly participate in terms of beauty practices? Is really a tall order for an individual girls or women. Yes, I remember in middle school, another Allison, because I always remember fellow Allisons, was shamed because she wasn't shaving her body hair or leg hair, and she's like 13 or whatever, 12, 13. She's not shaving her body hair because she had thicker black hair, so it was growing and more visible to us children. And because we consume the media that's telling us you're supposed to shave your leg hair, when we see a 12-year-old as fellow 12-year-olds with leg hair, we're like, that's not correct. According to the commercials I watch on TV, you're supposed to be shaving that. And then we all I don't know if I made fun of her. I think I watched people make fun of her and did nothing, which is just as bad, in my opinion, as making fun of somebody. But
what are you supposed to do, right?
I'm a 12-year-old. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be bullied either, so I'm just going to stand here and watch. Yeah, it was really messed up. Sorry, Allison, if you're out there, I'm sorry that happened to you. Western society's perception of body hair is something that's so dirty and disgusting it's relatively new. It wasn't until the early 20th century that the US razor company Gillette, which we just talked about, still the largest shaving company in the world today, began targeting women in their advertising campaigns as a way to solve the embarrassing personal problem of body hair. How embarrassing! An ad dating from 1915 reads, Gillette is welcomed by women everywhere. Now that a feature of good dressing and good grooming is to keep the underarm white and smooth. Right. So if you're black, you don't have to shave your body hair, right? Because it's our terrible joke.
You gotta hand it to Gillette. You gotta hand it to Gillette for creating a market. That is smart.
Good for them.
Oh, yeah.
I guess they were losing out on money.
Men grooming. By the way, men grooming is a big market nowadays. Yeah.
No, it's true.
Anyway.
We talked about it. I think we talked about it like a month ago. How the body care male market is heightening up. They're even wearing makeup now. So.
No.
More money for them. Before then, body hair removal in the West was reserved for the wealthier classes.
Alice Cooper.
And done primarily for religious or practical reasons to purify the body or prevent lice. Yeah, see? That makes sense. Thinking hair is dirty because lice exist is fair when you don't take showers and you live in the 1900s. We fortunately do not live in the 1900s where people are getting body lice all the time. So, by the 1950s, a Hemlinese rose and capitalism tightened its grip on society. More women were shaving than ever. The image of hairless legs and underarms became a symbol of feminine beauty. Body hair removal has only grown in popularity since. Aside from a short reprieve during the Bush-loving 1970s, today the global hair removal industry is booming. In 2022, it was valued around $1.14 billion, or 1.04 billion euros, and expected to reach 1.8 by 2032. Researchers from Mattel's 2023 UK shaving and hair removal market reported that 55% of UK consumers, both men and women, had removed underarm hair in the last 12 months. At this stage, body hair removal is more than a pressing trend, and while there is an increasingly visible contingent of female celebrities and influencers embracing natural underarm hair, they're swimming against a powerful social current. That is true. It's really hard to compete. Okay, this article actually goes way longer than I thought. So I'll go to the last paragraph, which is, so what's a girl to do when she wants to fight the patriarchy without reinforcing beauty norms? Both Daniels and Widows suggest non-visual challenges that can help put the body image and beauty standards into perspective. Widows started the Everyday Lookism campaign to harness the power of personal stories around body shaming. We share our stories of body shaming and negative comments about how we look to show that it's not okay, and get the collective action going, to stop saying things about people's bodies, she says. Daniel challenged her students to not look in the mirror for 3 days, to see how it made them feel navigating the world without a visual representation of themselves. It was really interesting to hear their worries and their concerns, and that they wouldn't be appropriate, like they wouldn't be okay going out in the world, both men and women, she said. I think it taps into this pressure that we feel that our appearance is being monitored. Yeah, that's true, everyone can always see you. And, I mean, it's kind of crazy if you don't look in the mirror for a while. You don't even think about your face anymore, right? Oh God, do I need to trim my eyebrows? I don't know, because I can't see them. I haven't looked at them in 3 days, and I've told other things are important to think about instead of thinking about if you need to trim your eyebrows, or spruce up your beard or cut your loose ends or whatever. That stuff doesn't appear in your brain if you just stop caring about it, honestly. And I'm not saying people shouldn't care about their outward appearance, right? What we're saying here is don't let society tell you to care about your outward appearance, right? You can care, but don't make it the whole world cares. It's just you. It's a personal thing, and that's what you should think. So there you go. There's my inspirational girl boss moment of the week. On to this day in history.
To each his own, man. Everybody likes what they like. C'est la vie, as the French say. Which basically just means that's life, I guess.
That's just how,
This day in history.
That's just how it is.
Yeah, this day in history, life was happening in 9 BC. As Roman Emperor Augustus dedicated the shrine at Ara Peace Pacis, the altar of peace, which of course, peace reigned ever since. In 1649, that was sarcasm, everybody. 1649, Charles I, King of Great Britain and Ireland, whose authoritarian rule and quarrels with Parliament provoked the English Civil War, was executed in London. Charles I, executed on this day, also was responsible for a great migration to the United States when he basically destroyed all religious protections when he dissolved Parliament in 1629. 1667, the Truce of Andrusovo ended in the 13 years war between Russia and Poland. See, peace just kept happening, even 1,600 years later. In 1847, previously known as Yerba Buena, name of a plant meaning good herb, San Francisco was given its current name. San Francisco, and I'm pretty sure it came from, Jesuit monks, because they're the ones that founded these missions all around what was known as Mexico at the time. 1911, American trumpeter Roy Eldridge, one of the great creative musicians of the 1930s, was born. 1912, Barbara Tuchman, one of the foremost popular historians of the United States in the second half of the 20th century and two-time Pulitzer Prize winner, was born. 1931, the American silent romantic comedy film City Lights had its world premiere and considered by many to be Charlie Chaplin's crowning achievement in cinema. 1933, the fictional character The Lone Ranger was introduced on radio station WXYZ in Detroit, Michigan. 1933, President Paul von Hindenburg named Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany, and the world began to suck immensely, almost immediately. 1941 is the birthday of Dick Cheney, who has held various government offices, most notably Vice President. He was born, so happy birthday, Dick Cheney. Happy 80. 3rd birthday to Dick Cheney, who will probably live to be 106. 1945, the greatest maritime disaster in history occurred as the German ocean liner Wilhelm Gustloff was sunk by a Soviet submarine, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 9,000 people. That was towards the end of World War II. 1972, a demonstration by Roman Catholic civil rights supporters in Londonderry, Northern Ireland turned violent when British paratroopers opened fire, killing 13 and injuring 14 others. One of the injured later died. Bloody Sunday, as it became known, precipitated an upsurge in support for the Irish Republican Army, and also a song by U2. 1995, if you wonder what Bloody Sunday, the song was about, it was mostly about that. But mostly about Northern Ireland violence. 1995, flooding forced the evacuation of more than 100,000 people from low-lying areas of the Netherlands. There you go, man. You've had a flood recently there.
Very deadly floods.
Be extra careful, and everybody there has a boat, right? Anyway.
No.
2000. You don't have one? Well, make one. 2011, California became the first state to celebrate Fred Korematsu Day, which honored the Japanese-American activist who was convicted in 1942 of violating the exclusion order requiring him to relocate. His subsequent legal appeals were denied. So yeah, it's one of these guys that thought he had rights, and he was wrong. You don't have rights, buddy. You silly man. Get in that kid. Get in that kid. Get on in there. Camp or prison, your choice. Great soul assassinated on this day. In our featured event, 1948, Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi, considered the father of his country, and internationally esteemed for his doctrine of nonviolent protest to achieve his political and social progress, was assassinated by some scumbag on this day in 1948. Feature biography, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yes, FDR's birthday today. He was born on January 30th, 1882 in Hyde Park, New York, and died April 12th, 1945 in Warm Springs, Georgia. Happy birthday, FDR. Also a birthday of Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman turns 94 today. That seems impossible. Gene Hackman, still alive and kicking. Of course, famously, The French Connection. Played that bit part. Played the blind guy in Young Frankenstein. That was a great scene. The blind guy with the suit. Anyway, Vanessa Redgrave's birthday today, born in 1937, a British actress. Abdullah II, King of Jordan, was born on this day in 1962. And Christian Bale, Welsh actor, born in 1974. I thought he was British. I didn't know he was Welsh. Well, I guess it is British technically, right? Is it? I don't know.
No idea.
And what day is it today besides National Croissant Day? It is National Plan for Vacation Day. Yeah. When you're sitting around in January, freezing your butt off, it's time to go, when can I leave this stinking job and go on vacation? And you got pictures of Mexico and Hawaii and Barbados up on your wall.
Barbados.
You're like,
hell yeah.
If it's good somewhere. Back to you. Oh, and that's it for today. Those are all the days for January 30th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
All right, and this has been Allison here, where, I don't know, we're going to get ready for a Wacky Wednesday, a quick Wacky Wednesday, right? Tomorrow, a quick show.
I've already got a story.
Yeah, he's already ready to be wacky tomorrow, so we're going to try to do a quicker, shorter show tomorrow because some people have other things to do, and we will see you for that. And here is your mic drop
computers lock up.
Look, I'd be happy to talk to some of the print media inside so that we're not harassed by these folks here. But again, the important issue here is the central constitutional issue about the separation of powers and the integrity of presidential decision making. And I have been caught in a battle between two competing branches of government, and we're about halfway to resolving this case. So I appreciate this. I'm sorry for the video cameras that you can't get clean sound because of this, but this is what has happened to this country, and it's unfortunate that they won't respect my First Amendment rights here. DefendPeter.com, please put that out on your stations, and I'll walk in. Do what? Try to ask the question.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.